Reviewers Reviewed by Anna Cora Mowatt Ritchie, writing under the pen name Isabel. Preface. Destined in anticipation to meet but little, and that little perhaps undeserved, leniency, I will not offer this, my second Trifling with the Muse, to the public without that due defence which every feeling of the woman's heart inspires. I would excuse my venturing in a path almost untrod by female steps, a road too hazardously rough to be willingly or safely encountered. I would fain deserve the favour which, to court, would make me unworthy of, and unknown, 'twere presumptuous to demand. I would enlist the unprejudiced in my cause, and would convince them that, whatever may be alleged against this satire, it has at least the merit of justice and truth. For none have I accused groundlessly, none have I censured who did not attack, not censure or criticize me. Footnote. Unless some few remarks on Willis, Bryant, Goodrich, Woodworth, etc., alluding to the wasting of their talents upon ignoble themes, may be deemed censure, respecting the lines devoted to Bryant in particular, whose ever beautiful and touching poetry cannot be read unmoved, they never would have been published, never written, except upon the principle, "Grieve to condemn, the Muse must be just," for, great as the powers of that celebrated writer are, it is undeniable that much of his talent has been spent on trivial and unworthy subjects. Pelayo, the first rude effusion of a warm though untutored heart, was presented to the public with all the rainbow hope, that unmingled buoyancy, which ever attends the joyous visions of expectant youth. I studied not the science of poetry, I heeded not its rules. In the enthusiasm of the moment, I only felt that nature formed her poets before nature's scorners shackled them with their modern trammels. Little dreamed I, while tracing the carelessly light-toned preface of Pelayo, that literary ordeal to which it was offered, and in some unfortunate allusion to my critics, my imagination scarcely painting them as other than ideal beings, I naturally gave vent to the playful exuberance of spirit which might have amused a circle of my own friends. But if I hoped to find amongst the wrath-dispensing race a friend, if I thought to ward off or beguile the tempestuous hurricane of critic censure, I but experienced the same disappointment thousands have before encountered, thousands must meet again. The most inoffensive badinage was interpreted as scorn, and excuses for my conscious deficiency translated into self-esteem. Had a just, even though severe, criticism been awarded me, had they quoted one line of mine and displayed its excessive faultiness, had they used my own language and proved its absurdity, had they showed how egregiously false was my versification, how imperfect my rhymes, or from whence my ideas were stolen, for of all these negligences and ignorances they bestowed on me a most bountiful share, I would have submitted, thankfully, to the scourge which brought improvement with its sting. But on the contrary, they gathered from the preface that Pelayo was written at the early age of 16, that proper attention had not been devoted to its revision, and that I myself was conscious of its innumerable defects, and, without further examination, made the above sweeping allegations. I do not, cannot deny their truth. I am at variance only with the spirit that dictated them, and their want of demonstrative proof. Another objection that was urged against Pelayo, which, not from me alone, but from the lips and soul of every patriot American, demands reply, viz., the extreme folly of publishing poetry when its age was on the wane. In the old world, where the Muse's glory has reached its meridian height, her power may well decline. But are we not of the New World, and shines she here, or has she ever shone in full maturity and splendor, arrayed in laurels from which time has plucked no leaf? How revolting to our national pride, how humiliating to believe that America should only produce a sickly poetic fire, expiring at its birth! Can poetry be on the wane, while such men as Halleck and Bryant are in their prime? Though its infant pinions yet are weak, may they not one day soar beyond even proud Albion's constellated host of bards? The small esteem in which modern poetical effusions are held in England may be inferred from the remarks of Bulwer, in his dedication of Paul Clifford. But hard it is to admit that most of our modern American critics, literati, and even bards themselves, have adopted his, in this clime at least, erroneous opinions. He says, in reference to an enthusiastic admiration of the Muse, for which he retains all the clinging fondness of first love, yet his obligation to write prose, "There is poetry in the first place. Will anyone read epic or sonnet, tale or satire, tragedy or epigram? Whatever be the variety, do not you object at once to the species? And would you not deem it less fatigue and greater profit to skim through 2 volumes than to yawn over one single stanza?" A tide of popular feeling has set against poetry, and in the literary world, as in the natural one, the tide and the hour can scarcely be neglected by the hardiest adventurer. But to return to my subject, I had jestingly stated, in my preface to Pelayo, that literary censurers would meet with twofold answer, in allusion to that voluble propensity of the sex, not supposing that, except in the same laughing spirit, I should be called upon to fulfill my promise. The result proved different. An abusive criticism which appeared in the Courier and Inquirer was answered as follows: "I had a dream which was not at all a dream, and more by half like waking truth did seem, as 'twere through misty clouds a room I viewed, where never folly's footstep dared intrude. For soon the mysteries of learned lore, inked quills, loose verses, papers on the floor, and desk with scribbled names all blotted o'er, proclaimed the vasty depth of wisdom there. The king of that wide hall, in deep despair, with knitting brow, fierce mien, and fingers black, and labouring brain too oft of judgment lack, sat lost in thought, of what, how should I know? Play mobs, or pence, or poesy, I trow. They all are mingled in this world so well, a keener glance than mine 'twould need to tell, of which that learned man then owned the spell. But hark! a knock disturbs his reverie. Who's there, my worthy Daniels? Ha! Is't thee? What news of broken bones hast thou to-day? Of party quarrels, aye, brawls at the play, or better yet, puffs to write for pay? Nothing, my lord, but books from Harper's sent, for those a puff apiece must sure be spent. A puff! the other cries in wondrous huff. A puff! Has he sent money for a puff? I'll not a word, I've written thus enough. Granted, great sir, but something must be said. It needs not that books should first be read. Such useless toil indeed we might well dread. Just call them fair, and quote a line or two. Unpaid 'tis all they should expect from you. This one's a romance by Isabel. Well bound it is, and printed very well. It must have worth. But hold, what do I see? Stop your praise, wise sir, 'tis poesy. What? Poesy? And grimly dark as night. Then grew his brow, and flashed his eyes more bright. Condemn it quick, no mercy must be given. What? O'erwhelm my souls with Rhine's great heaven! But stay, my lord, the preface can be read, for that is prose, 'twill pass. Let's see what's said. What's here? The lady's scarcely 17. There's your cue, there may you vent your spleen. And here, she owns a want of rhyme. 'Tis well, we've surely read enough the rest to tell. Besides, why needs there any more review? We safely may condemn a bard so new. Then angrily he caught his well-nibbed pen, and mused awhile, and stamped his foot, and then, why tell the rest? For sure the world has seen how true my vision was, how fierce his spleen, and I with all my heart for every line do yield him thanks. But why? Wouldst thou divine? 'Tis that reproof from one so just and wise. 'Tis flattery itself in quaint disguise. 'Twas highest praise, in sooth, that ever befell, when such as he deigned slander Isabel. Several other attempts at wit, in the garb of virulent criticism, appearing, it became inconsistent with higher objects in view to waste my time on productions of this perishable nature, and resigning to future leisure moments a work which had far progressed, I, with some difficulty, brought my woman's mind to fulfil my promise in this, as in all things, by writing the satire now presented, most tremblingly conscious of the arduous task I have undertaken, and the hazard of risking, even to the mercy of courteous and unbiassed readers, an attempt always dangerous, and rendering doubly difficult from existing circumstances, I yet feel auspicious hope, and in thy garden grow wreaths for each toil, a charm for every woe. But if I have aspired high, perchance too high, success will have more merit, failure less bitterness. To some of my dearest friends, who, when little thinking that Isabel herself was present, have censured the withholding of the authoress's name far more than any part of her work, I will observe what in this case were, and still are, my only objections. I did not wish to be judged by the affection they bore me, or their fear of giving offence, but that my reception should depend upon merit or demerit in composition only, and that many, who for my sake would have lavished praise and withheld censure, should be unbiassed in those opinions which, freely given, would tend to my own improvement. These were my only reasons for not declaring myself. No foolish love of mystery, no emulation of worthier bards, but alone the selfish motive of individual benefit. Yet I am not the first who, with best meaning, incurred the worst. End of Preface. Dedication of Reviewers Reviewed by Cora Mowatt Ritchie, writing under the pen name Isabel. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Dedication to the Honorable Richard Riker, Guardian of Peace, whose direful rod hath felled contagious vice and haughty license quelled, from suffering virtue snatched her thorn-wove crown, and o'er the front of sin its briars thrown. Canst thou, stern arbiter of crime, canst thou, for whom the lawless sons of outrage bow, canst thou no potent scourge, no sceptre wield, all-powerful as Minerva's gifted shield, and swift annihilate that critic race, whose simoon breath hath left its blighting trace o'er all that grovel not, nor woo their praise, nor buy the plaudits due to worthy lays. Athirst the bard may quaff at magic rill, round which the hallowed nine are dwelling still, may soar aloft on fancy's rainbow wing, or bid with glory's chant the wild lyre ring, or tune to love's soft notes its finest string. But ah, while inspiration fires his soul, in sweet delirium lost, while dreams unroll the page of future fame, where the far goal is reached, e'en then will envy's censuring slave with wormwood drug the sweet entrancing wave, e'en then will critic scoffers soon dispel each visionary hope, rob, as they swell the impassioned thoughts of half their radiant light, and wither joy, and ideal raptures blight. When Meleager's fated brand consumed, footnote, at the birth of Meleager, a billet of wood was flung into the flames by the Fates, who decreed that, when the log was reduced to ashes, he should be no more. His mother seized the brand and quenched it, but afterwards, enraged because he slew his brothers, with eyes turned black her quaking hand to trembling flames exposed the funeral band. Meleager then wasted away, and, with the flame of the faggot, expired. Died too the vital spark with life illumed. Thus, when the poet's dream of fame hath fled, Genius, thy light is quenched, ambition dead. Then seize once more the rod, reform the age. Stem thou these critics' murderers' idiot rage, and bid harsh censure fly each virtuous page. End of dedication. Introduction to Reviewers Reviewed by Anna Cora Mowatt Ritchie, writing under the pen name Isabel. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Introduction. Say ye, who throng around Parnassus steep, content mid censure's thorns your bays to reap, say ye, if earth in all her wide expanse one mortal bard enshrines, who ne'er by chance quailed 'neath the scorn-delighting critic's glance, or rancorous reviewer's venom plume, his worth's mock censor, his ambition's doom. I ask not of the dunce whose muse is higher, his lays e'en criticism's self might tire, but one of nobler mould, who might aspire to climb the hill in spite of wrathful breath from critics puffed, as though 'twere certain death. I one whose spirit, scorning as untrue their gibes, dare hurl them back from whence they flew. Even such will censure's deadly shafts pursue, until, like Keats, o'ercome. Footnote. The death of Keats is said to have been occasioned by a severe criticism which appeared in the Quarterly. His elegy was written by a brother poet as follows: "Who killed John Keats? I," says the Quarterly, "so savage and tartarly, 'twas one of my feats, and I killed John Keats." Who shot the arrow? The poet priest Milman, so ready to kill the man, or Southey or Barrow, and they shot the arrow. The minstrel fall, appeasing sacrifice of cynic gall. Content am I, with scarce a trivial claim, pretension slighter to poetic fame, unawed by critic spite, and e'en as free in thought, in word, indeed, as truth should be, that Isabel still lives, as my friends will see. My critic friends, forsooth! That little word, from every heartless lip so often heard, in this one sense alone is not absurd. A friend? Who has a friend? And who can say The man who was my friend but yesterday is still the same, though fortunes change to-day. To-morrow all my bankrupt debts will pay. Not this my theme, with friends I've naught to do. Foes are my subject, they or I must rue the luckless hour when first their keen wit flew to wound a bard whose pinions were so new. Kind reader, let me introduce the throng whose gentle warnings prompt my second song. Footnote: they bade me cease awhile, alas, alas, from lady gay to blooming cottage lass. 'Tis contradiction's spirit gains each pass. Then wonder not, dear maids, that I resume the quill, since contradiction is our doom. Yourselves, perhaps, to some unhappy swain, who long hath wooed and long had cause to plain, have frowning murmured No, when scarce those pearly teeth could from their rosy portals chase assenting breath. Your heart would fain say Yes, but contradiction No, for spite the mischief-loving dame would have it so. Thus, when those loveless swains call critics bid me cease, my soul is sure to dream of anything but peace. By Smollett's pen their portraits are set forth, and thus his pungent muse sums up their worth. All sneering sons of calumny and scorn, whose neither art nor sense nor soul adorn, a race who, to maintain a critic's rank, though conscious of their own internal blank, their want of taste unwilling to betray, 'twixt sense and nonsense hesitate all day, with brows contracted hear each passage read, and often hum and shake the empty head, until some oracle adored pronounce the passive bard a poet or a dunce. Then in loud clamours echo back the word, "'Tis bold, insipid, soaring, or absurd." Their studied terms, their phrases to condemn, are quickly learned, the cause of all their phlegm as quickly seen, for oft 'tis interest rules in these self-constituted judges' schools. Solely for worth, as for its want, they blame, that is, when either chance without a name. For names do alter cases, much as he games who lauds what wealth or family sustains. Unjust the poet who exclaims, "A name! What's in a name?" They are not all the same. 'Mongst worthies of our age a name is station, a name is gold, and gold a deputation. A name, 'tis plain, hath lately ruled the nation. When linked with wealth, it knows no degradation. With family joined, outlives e'en reputation. There needs not talent with it, I have seen a statesman summon his obsequious bow, or haughty lady bend in curtsy low, when smiles some senseless boor. They'd pass, I ween, without a glance, were but his name unheard, that known, not gifted Midas more had stirred their inmost souls, when first to glittering gold his magic touch transformed the meanest mould. 'Tis strange all pass the poet's lesson by, ne'er be the dupe of names, however high, for some outlive good parts, and some misapply. Lo, Dryden's self. Footnote: Dryden forgot a while enough for genius itself inspire, and forsook fame for self-interest, and fame returned the compliment in threatening to forsake him. Whose lordly muse of erst, by inspiration's rich ambrosia nursed, in wild melodious numbers waked her song, and spellbound, dazzled, awed, the bending throng. To him, e'en him, behold the fiend draw near, full in his sight, while want smiles through each tear, the scourge of worlds, a golden idol rear, and teach him, serpent-tongued, those deeds revere, which marshal first to Mammon's throne the way, but spurn each glorious theme if 'twill not pay. Alas! Then waved his muse her parting wing, indignant that a favourite son should stray, unaided bade him coin his grovelling lay, and venial notes to flattered monarchs bring. Nor e'er again, so brightly as before, awoke her smiles, till Plutus swayed no more. The poet laureate Southey too behold. [Footnote: Southey's change of politics, and history in general, are too well known to need comment.] Whose groaning muse lies chained in bonds of gold, at Mammon's shrine his wasted powers sold. Southey, the king of giants, monsters, sprites, of dreams, predictions, omens, fearful sights. Southey himself strove long to exorcise this only demon which he found too wise for mortal skill, until with labours spent, the king of demons [Footnote: Imaginary and poetical ones only] to the demons bent. What then, I ask, are names however high, since some, like Southey, may outlive them, aye, like Dryden some great talents misapply. End of Introduction. Canto 1 of Reviewers Reviewed by Cora Mowatt Ritchie, writing under the pen name Isabel. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Trial of Justice. All human race would fain be wits, and millions miss for one that hits. Swift. The world so full of spurious wit has grown, that critics once were all to censure prone. Not that more deep their penetration went, not that they felt the author's time misspent, not that his muse's wrongs they would resent, but that their labouring wit might find a vent. It was a sort of mania, and possessed a legion of that tribe who, uncaressed, unbought, the term may be as well expressed, expire, unless they fling the punster's jest from Knickerbocker to the penny press. It raged a fever in its wild excess. How shall the tide be stemmed? What bard can dare, though thirsting long, inhale Parnasian air, when thus he feels that critics will not spare the rod of wit or censure? What you please, the names may differ, 'tis the same disease. For be their judgment right, or be it wrong, their motto this: condemn the new-born song. And when shall nature's child in careless strain, though wildly, sweetly rude, each thought unchain, pour forth his soul, and loose bright fancies reign, but o'er his luckless head must critics vent wit long fermented, anger long pent, until, reposing from this sweetest toil, the censor ponders o'er each bard 'twill foil, and, like that Eastern king, who less the tone of music loved than the torturer's dying groan, broods then, delighted, o'er the hopes he'll sear, lists to the fancied sigh, portrays the tear, and smiles at dreams bereft, such smiles appear. Oh, that simile sublimely grand! E'en as my subject's self would now expand its tinsel wings o'er this impoverished brain. Alas! the Muse in its wrath flits home again. She cannot soar so high or stoop so low (choose ye the term) as suit my subject now. Of one distemper we've discoursed, alas! Another too there was that must not pass. While would-be wits each blunted point repaired, of shafts the earth might, losing naught, have spared, some demon was let loose upon the world, and where his gilded pinions fate unfurled, strange discord reigned. Whate'er he breathed upon grew dark, but hold, his name I'll tell to none, for daylight's honest glare doth Plutus shun. Was he not guilty, think you, of state treason? For sudden politics grew out of season, and folly's smile had chained the tongue of reason, and weeping sense sat mute as loath to fly, yet feeling her dominion lost for aye, while editors with editors at war shook all the reading world, and spread the jar. Besides, while kneeling to this luring demon, they soon, 'tis very strange, ceased to be freemen. Freemen, how vast, how glorious a term! Celestial grown sublime within the germ. A word vertumnus like in its degrees, with changing form each wearer's taste to please. Footnote: Vertumnus could not only change his form, but sex at pleasure. To those a sylph, a belted knight to these, the king who bids his inward mentor be sole lord and ruler of himself is free. The bard, whom neither plaudits move nor scorn, whose pen hath ne'er the stain of hirelings borne, whose soul breathes purely o'er his page, is free. For merit's fame must then his beacon be. The soldier girds on freedom with his sword. It thrills the peasant at his festive board. The veriest slave can in the wine-cup find a free and merry spirit that his mind unclouded never knew. Thy sons are free, America, since gold and usury can tempt them not. Descend we lower still, and say, my muse, when freedom's pulse shall thrill our sage but snarling editorial clan, their pens, I mean, in them we see the man. When? Ay, when they have ceased to bow before their ruling demon, him of golden ore, when selfish interest has no power to move, when every act is that their hearts approve, when their opinions are not bought nor sold, nor by the universal shout controlled, then shall the press know freedom, only then. And when shall that be? Hope re-echoes. When? But say, cries Mary, half reproachfully, ah, when shall we poor womankind be free? When, Mary? When we have no hearts to give, or yet reclaim again nothing to love, no souls that feel, no minds we can improve, when charming none, nor charmed, we senseless live, without an object, be it fame or aught, to which as North Star turns each magnet thought. When Cupid bears no arrows in his quiver, then, Mary, are we free, and that is never. Madame Discordia's apple, I have told, was 'mongst the scribbling, warring press-gang rolled. Books were in plenty, but their age seemed gone. Another god usurped Minerva's throne, and books, save gilt-edged ones, were read by none. But critics, who on faults alone could feed, thus poesy to them was food indeed. Like Jove's fierce thunder down the rods descend, when rhymes, Apollo shield me now, are penned. At length Minerva, with their folly wild, for Erato was still her favourite child, in wrath declared she would redress this wrong, and, smiling on the votaries of song, bade Justice once again resume her throne, and, as she hoped that favour would be shown, probe to the heart that editorial throng, whose blind dominion swayed the world so long. The demon's name, it seemed, she had long known. Alas! she had told it not to me. I'd loan 'twas fear my information to a friend, for women, it is said, their secrets lend to sworn associates, less than half a score, who only hint it to some dozen more. The Trial of Justice. Minerva's mandate given, loud on high, then echoed with her voice to the Olympian sky, and startled Justice, who beneath a cloud was dreaming, flung aside the blushing shroud, joyful once again her august throne resumed, and dashed to earth the slave who oft assumed that long unhallowed seat. For Custom's reign had exiled Justice, and her sceptre ta'en. Custom, her sanction shields the blackest deed, and Vice and Folly her approval plead. Custom, she styles the rich man lord of all, and hurls the poor e'en low as Vice can fall. She smiles on wealth and all its peccadilloes, and bindeth poverty in sorrow's willows. She nurtures that weak child of morbid taste, sick Fashion, with her taper spindling waist, gay flashing air, consumptive look unwrecked, mute lips with mirror-studied smiles bedecked, and arts to banish nature's light proportions, or Hebe faces spoil with taut contortions. She calleth tooth outre, or trite, severe, forbids the glowing heart and lip appear, in amity or fellowship too near, till modesty deems blushes most insipid, and truth declares embellishments permitted, and in critics' wise magniloquence is lawful all, with custom for defence. The critic, let him pour his studied hate to frighten pseudo-bards, but since Dame Fate did mould me in a rhyming mood, too late 'tis now to change. What must be must. I ne'er will shame her goodness with a coward fear. And though she rank me last among the train of those who in the courts of fancy reign, if satire smile, with Byron I will say, whose words are worshipped all in the present day. The royal vices of our age demand a keener weapon and a mightier hand, and yet there are follies e'en for me to chase. Nor will I falter in the desperate race. Once more to Justice turn, who now again her throne ascends, forsaken one 'tis plain, at least when scribbling poets were concerned, or we, unblinded, had ere this discerned, that songs on waterfowls, though sweet they be, high-sounding, noble too, no flattery is meant, were lofty, but incondant themes, to call forth thus the poet's brightest dreams. And Bryant, spite of all his tinselled song and soft idea, had learned, though pardon long, that warbling thus of birds which soar on high, like them he ne'er might think in song to fly, if still he lived, with genius uncontested, with hopes and dreams by censure unmolested, the immortalizer of the feathered tribe, of ducks and geese the unexampled scribe. If still he dared pervert the muse's power, dared waste on screeching fowls her short-lived hour, dared pluck the weeds alone within her bower, to gain the sycophantic praise of those who each new day on heaps of rhyming dose, nor venture to condemn the verse that flows in senseless jingles smoothly flat along. It matters not what theme dictate the song, or be it duck or fowl to elegize, or simply violet, simply poesize. Footnote: referencing Lines on a Yellow Violet by Byron. Behold and blush to see what noble lays have won from these ear-judging critics' praise. What are the dreams that swell each idle page? What sing the bards in this our fallen age? The death of flowers. Footnote: referencing The Death of Flowers by Bryant. When the death-birth of empires and kings that rule the earth, unsung, unheeded pass, find ye a dearth of themes like these. When injured Poland's name is blotted from the scroll of living fame, when Texas springs to liberty and life, and o'er her fields so late was slaughtered rife, Columbia's eagle spreads its wings aloft, deem ye such themes for venal lyres too soft? O subjects higher, loftier, better prized, the feathered songsters ye've immortalized, the winged ones by the wingless poesized, behold, upon a city pigeon poured. Footnote: referencing City Pigeon by Willis. The warbling soul's full melody, long stored, till some inspiring object should appear, when for the poet's ease the bird hopped near. And lo! red-breasted robin, lucky bird! Footnote: referencing lines on the Robin Redbreast by Goodrich. A brother rhymester's soaring spirit stirred, nor has the same romantic soul forgot, when the next Urania smiled, the sea-bird's lot. Footnote: Urania, because she sings of the heavens and divine things, and his themes in accordance may certainly be said to approach the sky. And scarce less fortunate the beach-bird seems. Footnote: referencing lines on The Little Beach-Bird by Dana. His chirpings, too, called forth poetic dreams. Or nobler yet, a cricket now inspires. Footnote: lines on a cricket by Norton. Now a mosquito deathless song requires. Footnote: referencing lines on a mosquito by Bryant. And next, the rival bubbles from a brain. Footnote: referencing rival bubbles by Goodrich. In nonsense great, raptured senses chain, and meditations on Rhode Island coal, display the lofty sphere of Bryant's soul, while Willis' strength and pride in equal scale o'er a torn hat doth rhyming, whining wail, nor roused by fame's loud trumpet seeks a higher, more lofty flight than waits the feeble choir, the sonneteering, pamphlet-pampered train, whose couplets speak their fabrication's pain, the lusty parents of a meagre verse, harmonious, glittering, jingling, tinselled, terse, that might be better, scarce in nature worse. Ah, where is he, the warrior bard? Ah, where the arm, the soul of might, which could compare with e'en time-honored Albion's worshipped stars? Where are the poet's gifts, the warrior's scars? Go ask of Death, who plucks each brightest gem, the first to deck her ghostly diadem. Oh, for the lordly and majestic mind, the genius, vigor, soul in thee enshrined, immortal Drake! Where shall Columbia find another son to grace thy vacant stead, whose gifted spirit dawning, dazzled, fled? Footnote: Drake died aged 25 years. Yet long as the star-spangled banner shall wave. Footnote: it is said that Drake is the author of our national song, The Star-Spangled Banner, although we do not find it in the collection of his poems. Since this was in type, we have heard it scribed to Mr. McKee. O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave, revered and hallowed still thy name shall dwell, freedom's first watchword, glory's proudest spell. Pause here, censorious souls, that little spell. Excuse it, pray, it rhymes, it chimes so well. A trite conclusion, scribbler's terms, 'tis true. Have mercy, pray, nor cry with looks so blue, and for that reason suits precisely you. While roving, careless, stepped through fancy's haunt, broke on my ear the warrior's funeral chaunt, and charmed, enraptured, loftier grew my theme, but my wild muse, those cheating muses dream so lightly, ere my mournful vision ended, more quickly woke than I, at least, intended. In truth, she owns a native love of fun, perhaps 'tis that her springtime's just begun, and youth is frolicsome. Thus, may you see, before the finale of my rhapsody, she woke, and change of mood so quickly befell that all her soarings wound up with a spell. How oft, when grief enthralls the o'ercharged soul, and bitter tears adown our pale cheeks roll, while sighs are bursting from the stricken heart, a mirthful thought, we know not whence, will dart so gaily, brightly o'er the clouded breast, that tears are turned to laughter, grief to jest, and vanquished sorrow then, revengeful groan, bids April-like hysteria mount her throne, a fay who intermingles smiles and tears, nor age, nor youth, nor grief, nor joy reveres, but mixes age's palsy, youth's mirth, grief's pearly stream, joy's sparkles in one birth, and hers, methinks, to-day our muse's hap, when waking from her sky-exploring nap, the sunbeam smiles just kindling dreamy tears, she ends with spell her more sublime ideas. And yet, though mostly courted for its rhymes, the self-same spell is valuable sometimes, nor boast our copious tongue one other word more used and abused, more loved, abhorred, save what impels the warrior's conquering lance, thy spell, O beauty's loved illumined glance! Why rush the foe, or fame, or death to meet, that victor wreaths may lie at beauty's feet? What armed the knights of chivalry, whose life and glory hung upon mortal strife? Was it hate, or pride, or fame? No wilder still awoke the soul's delirium, the thrill, the maddening fire, by joy sustained and pain, alluring dreams that wilder wisdom brain, 'neath love's fierce spell, young love's beguiling reign, and waked by beauty, fanned by love. Ah, why? Why soar the bard's bright phantom dreams on high? What wafts the poet's visions from their cell? Fame, the great ill, thy ever-glorious spell, more countless e'en than stars begemming night, man's myriad spells, like love, by turns that light his onward path, or, e'en as fame, that blight, with disappointments torture all his dreams, and fancy's rainbow cloud, and hope's bright beams, or quench, orbit display in fitful gleams. O love and beauty, bards have sung your birth, nor was, nor could be of this plodding earth. Yet sprang ye not, immortal, from the sky, for man, they say, will tire of beauty's eye, and Cupid's wings were made, alas, to fly, and youthful hearts are now with scars replete, the days of first love being obsolete. Ay, spells ye have, can they forever chain? Ah, no, for short is love's enchanting reign, and beauty fading never dawns again. Thus spells must end, and mine at length is done. Perhaps 'twere better had it ne'er begun. Upon her throne awakened Justice placed, two earth-born sprites the courtly presence graced, such elves as poison oft the minds of men, and steal their souls they know not how or when. The first was Prudence, so by worldlings called, but Selfishness by those she ne'er enthralled. The next, Ambition, not with him the same who grapples wildly for the wreath of fame, but builds in worth a never-dying name, but one whose sordid spirit seeks alone the applause of wealth, the sceptre of a throne himself hath made, whose skill is used to blind the passions rule and seem to sway the mind, whose phoenix fame alone can mount on high when 'neath his pen the hopes of others die. His lean and bony hands betwixt were held, the consciences of some his art impelled, to crush their fellow mortals, that themselves might rank the first on literary shelves, in books well bound, well puffed. Ah, who can doubt? For they, thus scandal spreads the tale about, the exclusive privilege by patent claim of trumpeting, as the phrase is, their own fame. Lo, first of all the critic clan behold, Lord of the Mirror, Morris, termed the Bold. Footnote, editor of the New York Mirror. But some have whispered this in covert scorn, because than fight he'd rather fawn upon his enemies, and cringe and bow, and, like the hound which doth its master know, on those to whom he dares not hatred show. Caresses lavish, 'tis secret though. Let none his giant genius e'er despise, to noble heights of song doth not he rise? Forgets the world those smoothly croaking rhymes, which fresh from coinage in diluted times, like these, have softly lulled the listening ear, that is, when listeners could be found to hear. Why not, since he inflicts but thrice a year? Yet elfish Rumour trumpet-tongued declares, while Reason at her tell-tale folly stares, these sweetly jingling rhymes are pilfered half. But who at scandal such as this would laugh? For laughing were to own the slender truth, and I believe most firmly, in good sooth, their full originality, for oh! from whom his muse purloined 'twere hard to know, and libelling men of parts is out of season. Militia colonel too, what rank or treason? We wish him joy, and hope his enemies may ne'er attain a station great as his, nor wisest rank of all the critic train, nor first upon the mimic battle plain. Men of all their prices have, to Mammon bow, the proverb saith, rich, poor, and high and low. For how much then, O Morris, wilt thou vary once more thy Proteus-like vocabulary? For how much wilt thou cease, nor yet transfuse thy mirror's surface with learned K's and U's? Footnote. In explanation of the K's and U's, or old style of spelling, adopted by the editor of the Mirror, the following article is copied from the Literary Emporium, New Haven, August 13th, 1836. When systematic errors are made to revive and perpetuated the absurdities that so long perplexed and embarrassed the English language, we feel it a duty which we owe to the cause of literature to use the facilities providentially placed in our hands to disabuse the public mind. The readers of the New York Mirror will be surprised to learn that the editors of that paper announced to Dr. Webster 5 years ago their resolution to adopt his dictionary as their autographic guide, while the Mirror is to this day perhaps the most thoroughly ultra in its adherence to the exploded system of any publication in the English language. This subject has been farther elucidated by a private friend who states that Mr. Morris was substantially influenced in his rejection of Dr. Webster's dictionary by Messrs. Connor and Cook, publishers and patronizers of a spelling book in opposition to Dr. Webster, and edited by one Cobb, a petty schoolmaster, who annoys his neighbors 50 miles round by sending them through the post office pamphlets detailing his views of the new system, which pamphlets, however, in some country village were collected into a large parcel and returned by post. What nymph did Connor and his colleague Cook, the printing twain who publishes Cobb's wise book, what blindfold nymph employed they to ensnare thy honor, and each lingering virtue scare? Bore she a golden scale, and a look obtruse, and magic wand that could bright ore produce? Most sapient leader of the critic clan, thou various gibe upon the name of man. Could Bryant's gems not yield enough, allied to Cox's sketches, and the loiterings of Traveller Willis, the self-satisfied, who much of pungent wit at Marriott flings, and weaves for thee his lofty-sounding rhyme, in tinsel brightly gaudy, rich in chime? Go, spread thy fame as Libyan Sappho did. Footnote. Sappho taught a number of birds to say, Sappho is good, and then gave them their liberty. The birds remembered the phrase, and the Egyptians, hearing on every side repeated, Sappho is good, Sappho is good, paid him divine honors. No longer should those virtues all be hid. What he taught birds do thou thy minstrels teach, nor let man's ignorance thy deeds impeach. Away! The voice of justice shall decree what glorious fate befitteth such as thee. Who next appears? Ye stars, a colonel too! No wonder 'mongst the editorial crew that Mars so long hath reign, since keen-edged swords must yield before the hotter war of words, since chivalry hath flung his shield away, and to each empty pedant yields the day. Welcome, all-conquering Webb, that gossamer name. Footnote: James Watson Webb, editor of the Courier and Inquirer. Beseemeth well thy even lighter fame, thy snare-devising self and wily creed, for webs catch foolish flies, and spiders feed on hapless victims to their arts decreed. The unwary thus are lured within thy toils, while even spider-like thou'lt seize the spoils, though ne'er a prize like Biddle will again be trapped, nor mayest thou hope the golden rain of thousands 52 can e'er descend, thy changeling politics once more to mend. Thyself a snare, thy food like spiders got, so shalt thou, as a thing that fame knows not, like a spider live, like a spider die forgot. We hail thee king, great Webb, of all the mob. Long life! And should thy subjects chance to rob that purse by which such honest means was filled, I prithee, let some character be killed. The world loves slander, and thy blanket sheet shall soon with new subscriptions be replete. Come, come, in sternest mood Dame Conscience says, of facts relate, I like not these ways. So be it. Brave and lion-hearted one, thou modern Richard, feared and yet loved by none, whose mighty arm e'en valor's self does shun, whose ready wrath the veriest fools bestir. When horsewhip favors didst thou last confer? How long is't now since that immortal fight, when Duff Green's pistol met thy startled sight? Footnote: The circumstance here alluded to from its general currency needs no explanation. And thou, even as the Gauls when Pan appeared. Footnote: The Gauls under Brennus, when about to plunder Delphi, were so alarmed at the appearance of Pan that they fled, though unpursued. Took to thy heels before the foe had neared. What ails thee now? Goliath, 'tis a child, assails, then be not thus with fury wild. No David I, the harmless stone I flung, it hath not sure thy waking conscience stung? A child, who would better wait her 20th year, nor dare at 17 in rhymes appear. Footnote: In allusion to his criticism on Pelayo, in which he admonishes the authoress to wait until her 21st year, etc. At 17, then 'tis at that you sneer? O shades of Pope and Milton, shield me here! From earlier still began your proud career. If not in youth, when smiling hope sits thrown in every laughing eye, when lips respond the heart's first dictate, when the dear, the fond, the charmed deceivers, love and joy combine, for spotless brow their hallowed wreath to twine, when love his whispered nothing softly pours, and joy gives pinions to the radiant hours, when pleasure's fairy foot around us plays, when neither chilling wisdom sadly strays along our path, nor stern-eyed reason's light, nor omen-breathing prudence mars delight. If not when every morn new rapture brings, oh, when indeed should our imagining in all their brightness seek poetic wings? Hast thou forgot that Churchill justly sings, "A native taste, though rude, is never wrong, be it in music, painting, or in song, but these, like all other faculties, improve with age, and ripen by degrees." In good part, footnote, quoted from his criticism of Pelayo, "Take my counsel, censuring friend, for what thou givest of scorn my muse will lend thee quick return, no more her malice test, for payment comes with suited interest, and that, they say, increases so of late, it threatens soon to ruin all the state. Pass on, thou son of Mars, we try thee not, till justice shows thy follies unforgot. Behold him, courteous reader, tall and high, if not in soul, in form you'll not deny. How pompous is his step, how proud his mien! Oh, that some window in that breast were seen! The owl of wisdom then might well forsake renowned Minerva's shield." Footnote. Minerva is painted with an owl upon her shield. "And earthward take, with joyful shrieks, the first exploring flight, if e'er should burst upon its gloomy sight a home like this, more black than favorite night, and every cloud which ignorance has cast around his soul would then disperse at last. But who, what witling in his shadow crawls, gathering the crumbs that from his bounty falls, and clings more fondly to his patron's side, as every vice in swarthiest dress is spied, till you might deem some mute congenial spirit led his soul at shrines most dark to sue for bread? Ay, who, the dearest lover of gibe, the cringing editorial scribe? Daniels. Footnote. Daniels, formerly sub-editor to the Courier and Inquirer, whom we must apologize to the reader for introducing, as to his honor he is solely indebted to his sensible and erudite criticism on Pelayo. The mild, the gentle, pungent wit, who often strove but never made a hit, who, while his master sits at home in ease, footnote, at his residence in Flushing, surrounded by his corn, his oats, his peas, his cows of Durham breed, with horns so short, his fowls, his ducks, his geese, his hunting sport, his golden harvest waving with the wind, his new inventions, wheat or oats to grind, in sooth all pleasures of a country life, cows, horses, ploughshares, corn cribs, and a wife. This last, as most our poets write for rhyme, as wives, some have averred, are no pastime. A second Cincinnatus, though more prone to gather laurels not by right his own, dares tamper with the public each new day, and in his master's name's opinion sway. Mouths honor, where 'twill profit something pay, his pen in editorial war engage, in novel or in play a flaw presage, then shield himself behind his payer's screen, because, forsooth, he cheats the world unseen. What ho! Another colonel on the road! O Mars, why stray thy warring sons abroad? The sabre bids them wield, but never pen, lest for the battle strife they thirst again, and Draco-like besmear their judgment quill with blood to crush whate'er they cannot kill, and even mid fusty books be warriors still. But how, alas, shall I with meet discretion give yonder blameless colonel's deeds expression? The painter e'er successlessly portrays that visage marbly cold, where wit nor plays, nor dullness sits, nor thought a feature sways. My muse of him she blames not, nor can praise, is loath to sing, when Stone her voice demands. Footnote. Colonel Stone, editor of the Commercial Advertiser. To truth akin, she nor extols nor brands, no hypocrite was he, a man not bad nor good, nor one who any passion had that might distinguish or yet stigmatize. He was no fool, and yet than fools less wise. But what of that? The world holds thousands more who think that wisdom's in itself a bore. He was, as Halleck's muse did sing of yore, a decent kind of person, one whose head was not of brains particularly full. It was not known that he had ever said anything worth repeating. 'Twas a dull, good, honest man, of matter and of fact, though minus in what fashionables call tact, that little indescribable soft art that wins or else conciliates the heart, that woos with sweet enchantments, speaking not, in one great act by friendships ne'er forgot, but in a thousand ways caressing charms the souls, and e'en the cynic's self disarms, that with the blunt is mildly, bluntly shrewd, and bows in submission to the rude, that wears with twittering folly folly's cap, with dullness sits awhile in vacant nap, with mincing prudery is more prudish seen, can yield to slander neath politeness' screen, with old men hold no argument, with young permit the freedom of a wagging tongue, with those who wish it smilingly agree, nor view a thing you are not meant to see, nor know a tale another likes to tell, nor rail at illness to a man not well, nor dare with woman praise some beauteous maid, till to your hearer's charms is tribute paid, with hints sufficient that she doth excel in much more than befitteth you to tell. In short, it was an art, and an art still is, that polishes, therefore an art not his. And such, because they make but small inroad on men or manners, it is now the mode to bear with good their exit or entrée unknown, thus million nothings pass away. Such too are doomed to grace the critic's bench, who ignorance in gravity entrench. To such the rod is given, such might scourge our bards, and sing their high ambition's dirge. But hist! when come the sounds of revelry, of dancing feet, and ballroom's melody, the voice of lisping girls but just come out, and women of a certain age, no doubt, still lingering at the spring of 25, though that 10 years was past, as I'm alive, and now a cloud of perfume balms the air, pomatum and cologne their fragrance there most sweetly intermingle, like, but where the candidate for fame? None here appears. What means yon bandbox, which it tops uprears, like mountain labouring with the mouse of old? Oh, may our muse no mouseling here affold! Nay, nay, my friend, why sits the scornful smile upon thy lip? Our bandbox holds no guile. From Cinderella's pumpkin rose a coach. Who knows what guest a bandbox may not broach? 'Tis said, Asmodeus by his magic art the housetops raised, so shall my wand impart the secret here, flings thus the lid away. Up starts the pink of dandies, blooming gay. [Footnote: Dandy has been voted vulgar, and beau is now the word. I doubt whether the revision will stand the exploded title, though it has its faults. The first, the muse of Byron, has made not only English but classical. Quoting Disraeli. As tulip basking in the sunbeam's ray, like young Adonis when from the rest he springs, and Venus to his bower her pathways wings, and Triptolemus when he rises from the flames, like Phaeton when the steeds of Jove he claims, like Paris stands when beauty's queen appeals, and he the golden ball to Venus yields, like lovely Perseus armed with gifts from heaven, like Amphion when the magic lyre was given, or like Tithonius, when Aurora's voice proclaims him first companion of her choice. So stands unveiled our new Adonis there. One hand with snowy fingers combs his hair, while t'other lily, flourished through the air, unfurls the cambric web, whose perfumes rise in wreaths of musk or otto to the skies, touching his heart, selon usage du mode, to all il fait obeisance profonde, and simpers then, and smirks complacently, demanding due applause and homage freely. Bow down, ye gazing throng, your tribute pay. Behold, he smiles, he moves, make way, make way. Silence and room for Lewis Gaylord Clark. Footnote: Lewis Gaylord Clark, editor of the Knickerbocker. A shining light just issued from the dark. Foppery and foppery laws were hid in night, till Folly said, earth trembling at her might, Arise, let Lewis be, and all was light. Footnote: Nature and nature's laws were hid in night. God said, let Newton be, and all was light. Quoting from Pope. Look, all you beaux, who'd catch the newest airs, the last imported, sweetest smiles he wears. Behold and learn to swing a fairy cane, to cut a country friend who's grown too plain. But if the sense I do not misconstrue, too honest may, perhaps, be a name more true. Or with a soft alluring nonchalance, his vanity may term it complaisance. Footnote: The gentle reader who may wax unkind at the frequent use of French terms will pardon me when I explain that, having throughout endeavored to suit my style to my theme, and vary my tone according to that of my subject, the appropriate and inappropriate use of French phrases being now the rage with modern exquisites, I may perhaps be permitted to use them not unfrequently in the description of Mr. Clark. Lead forth the best-dressed lady to the dance, and then, with the most approved and elite air, some timid fair one out of countenance stare, talk loud in the fashionable jargon wise, with lounging grace settees monopolize, with winning careless and half-shut eyes, while gently sipping of the bright champagne, survey, of course, to be surveyed again, for butterflies are of their liveries vain. Proceed we now most patiently, selon what ball-room votaries would call bon ton, that is, in whispers follow up his name, with all the vice and virtue he can claim, his prospects, his hope, and qualities, so forth, for thus our worldlings usher sterling worth. Which means, translated, all the persiflage with fashion's sanction that invests the age. Lo, from the bandbox where he stands upright, a mushroom knickerbocker seeks the light, like him, long in obscurity's dim night immersed, until, in this book's coining age, some witling first turned o'er its senseless page. For literature, oh, literature, they say, mongst even fools and fops should rule the day. And pray, what mean they by this literature? Not information, sense, or wisdom sure, to while an hour in some dull reading-room, to toss the papers o'er, an air assume of learning most profound, the titles know, of novels, poems, essays, then the go. Or if some work of which you've never heard is named, to call it foolish, most absurd, declare you tried but could not read it through, that 'twas not even worth a slight review. The odor of each new bound book inhale. Footnote: Quoted from the Knickerbocker Review of Pelayo as the saying of his friend the immortal Sands, and represented to be the true and established method of criticism. This is done, you are a critic without fail, and learned and literary as you please. You've naught to do but sit and smoke at ease, and give opinions with a sapient air. Of truth or justice take but little care. Effrontery is current everywhere. Turn we again our eyes to justice's seat, that dread dictatress's long hushed voices to greet. For, though than Areopagites more stern, and true as stern, their muteness shall she spurn. Footnote. The judges of Areopagus delivered their sentences in the dark, not by words, but on paper, lest the agony of prisoners should move them to compassion. So says my muse, and muses bear restriction, as women do their husbands' jurisdiction. It matters not how that may be, for I intend no harm, and justice, by the by, being a maiden in the world's conviction, thus may be pardoned any predilection to women's weapon, commonly called tongue. O hapless ye, o'er whom its notes hath rung! 'Tis true, her weapon Byron calls a tear. Footnote. Oh, too convincing, dangerously dear, in woman's eye the unanswerable tear, that weapon of her weakness she can wield, etc., from the Corsair. But Socrates had differed with him here. Perhaps viragos in his time were scarce, or tears were fewer, thus more great their force, for now the pearly tide hath blistered o'er full many a novel's page, and yet shall pour its flood unless the fashion change once more. Some say his lordship to Xantippe tied, the Gordian love-knot rent, nor dared abide, with henpecked patience, through the mazy course of that most lengthy lawsuit, a divorce. Escaping thus the sex and sex's might, he wooed the mute Harpocrates in flight. Arrived at this scarce dubious conclusion, henceforth we may proceed with less confusion. End of first canto. Canto 2 of Reviewers Reviewed by Cora Mowatt Ritchie, writing under the pen name Isabel. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Scene: Court of Justice. Dramatis Personae. Spirits: Justice, Prudence, Ambition, Truth. Mortals: George P. Morris, Colonel Webb, Mr. Daniels, Colonel Stone, Lewis Gaylord Clark. Justice: Stand forth, thou trifler with the public taste. Morris, our breath on thee 'twere vain to waste. Yet stand forth, and face a judge for once, who can discern the genius from the dunce. And now, O hallowed spirit, borne on high, who rovest through earth, though nurtured in the sky, before whose glance dark vice in terror flies, and swarthy souls discard their base disguise. O peerless truth, awake, appear, arise! Rises truth. Hail, glorious vision! 'Neath thine eyes' bright gleam, behold how yonder phalanx quakes! Its beam, like morning rays, with almy freshness rife, whose kisses wake each dew-gemmed flower to life, expands and radiates the unstained soul, but, like the death-armed lightning, blasts the foul. Albeit, O heavenly maid, in magic cell thou dwellest not, nor while virtue lives shalt dwell a stranger now, an alien wert thou long to yon fame-vending, paper-puffing throng. Morris, approach! I charge thee, Prudence, hear! As high Minerva's mandate you revere, before the piercing eye of truth attest what virtues reign within this minion's breast. Defend not his rugged verseward road, his brain obtuse hath little rhyming load. We pass in scorn a muse that half purloins, or half her verse with toilsome labour coins, forsooth, the wise prudential hopes divine, that made him Connor's hireling, slave of thine. See note, page 41. Prudence. So please the court, great judge, a worthier child, by honour and by conscience ne'er beguiled, hath on the toils of prudence seldom smiled. Conscience, a babbling fool, the wise deride. Honour, a glittering bubble swelled with pride. For when in fortune's car did conscience rise? And when did honour fill the poor man's purse? The pampered rich, until he meet reverse, may honour's whims afford. The poor must live, and Connor with his cook had coin to give. Webster, but thanks or friendship empty name, synonymous with famine, and too tame to move a colonel's soul, whose chiefest pain is by his wits a livelihood to gain. Ye talk of honesty, 'twere mighty well for puffed-up gourmands of such things to tell. But honesty, like love, will never make the kettle boil, alas, the oven bake. And honest men, like loving fools, must starve. At least they need not learn to carve. I have not unfrequently heard of gentlemen who made this accomplishment an important study. Have I not proved by demonstration clear that honesty and honour, when too dear, are only marplots to our interest here? If Morris then should spurn their useless fame, must censure light upon his laurelled name. Useless, for where are honour's winnings stored? And blunt honesty, where lies thy hoard? Let threadbare saint such vanities abuse. 'Twixt gold and honesty the wise can choose. Justice. I choose, but who, alas, will choose aright? Or who resists thine arbitrary might? Who dares thy wily counsels spurn? But hold, ambition speak. What arts canst thou unfold? Ambition. Mine were the dictates taught his soaring soul, that just or unjust, fame's embowered goal his steps must reach, his name adorn her scroll. A bard and critic both, he would his lays, revered as now, might live in future days. And shall these lofty schemings be deterred by conscience's scruples? Most absurd. If some bright star burst forth that may outshine his lesser light, what vails it to repine? My counsel mark, though charm the poet's page, though noble every thought, or sweet or sage, let him with frowning censors aught unclue, their half-wove fame, each passage misconstrue, drag forth each hid absurdity to view, and ruin hurl upon that daring bard, who offers for his plaudit no reward. For if the minstrel stoop to court just praise, or pay its price, aye, then indeed he sways that rhymester's meed, and may disbase or raise. Justice. Perish the sordid soul like his degraded, perish the mind by selfish vice pervaded, that hugs the ignoble chain ambition weaves, and by her rule condemns, admires, deceives. Morris, no more the voice of justice scorn, as from Mokanna, so from thee is torn the veil, thy dark deformities displayed, and since thou ne'er again their hue canst shade, no longer live the Muse's venal toy, no more with pilfered rhymes thy friends annoy. To furbish lovesick fustian henceforth cease, thy witless sonneteering band release, nor bid all other minstrels hold their peace, no longer like the genius doomer Ching, Ching, a detestable tyrant, and the second emperor of the fourth dynasty of China, became ambitious of being thought of as its first sovereign. With this view he ordered all historical writings and public records to be burned, and the learned men to be buried alive, that past events might not be transmitted to posterity. Whose sole renown doth from his vices spring, on lesser ruins rear thy puny frame, and by destruction build thyself a name. He in a living grave, the wise entombed, genius by thee had oft, alas, been doomed to an untimely death, where but by thy might more dread, or thy chaotic brains more bright. Thy brains, what did I say? Oh, truth forgot, thy brains! Why waste a thought on what is not? Enough! From whence proceeds that noisy jar, now like fierce thunder murmuring from afar, now deafening as the trump that sounds to war? Is the bedlam all let loose, for mirth and wrath are strangely mingled there? The laugh, coarse laugh, ascends, plebeian whistles ring, hisses and shouts, and all the noisy play mob's blisses, in sweet accordance blended, stun the ear. What lusty midnight brawler now is near? The ragged sons of clamour on his track, while play-mob wranglers, a stentorian pack, his efforts in the nightly uproar black, boxing and blasphemy amuse his sight, and blood fills up his spirit with delight. Thou lordly enemy of law and peace, thy clamorous bacchanalian train release. Part swift yon crowd, let jeers and curses cease. Thou son of discord, warlike web, appear. Prudence, we await thy voice. Prudence. Proceed, for here I must be mute. Yon giant moulded brawler, whose seeming wits are than his head much smaller, whose height of frame than height of soul far taller, hath wooed the form of prudence all in vain. My sway is naught where passions lose their reign. Ambition. There needs not, by your leave, this great confusion. Yon colonel's virtues are of my infusion, since by the boldest, noisiest deeds he gains that fame which else might cost a life of pains. For this he loads the songster with abuse, footnote, alluding to the banishment of the woods at the instigation of Colonel Webb. For this his train of bedlamites lets loose, and though it be to banish those who oft have charm and wafted every soul aloft with music like an angel's whisper soft, what matters it how great their suffering hour, since every sigh they can heave attests his power? Let court and crowd declare, dealt he not right to chase the mad intruder from his sight? Shall Wood, a base-born clown, a mean exotic, refuse, forsooth, to own his sway despotic, dare fling defiance in his teeth and sneer at his decrees, whose bold and wild career hath made him both to Mars and discord dear? Ignoble thought! Forbid it, all ye ghost of warriors dead! Forbid it, all ye host of Indians he destroyed, whose scalps, when strung, shall round his cottage wall in wreaths be hung. Footnote. Colonel Webb, when attached to the army, was at one period stationed on the frontiers amongst the Indians. As no other record seems to have been kept of his prodigies of valor, the muse at least dares not pass them unnoticed and unsung. And oh, forbid it, Mars, ye brave unslain! Forbid it, all ye wrangling train! Justice. Cease, cease, and say, before our patience fly, what servile slave so cautiously steals by, with frightened mien, bent hand, and wily eye, and looks as dark as carrions, when, mid-gloom, he rows his bark of ghosts to meet their doom. Ambition. Good cause for darkness, carrion wafteth souls to realms unknown, while he, poor fool, controls poetic vision, and would seek to hide in dread obscurity each brain that tried to build the lofty rhyme. He is a critic, by nature formed the anti of poetic, but by profession made the true aesthetic. He frowns by rule, ejaculates, looks sour, and deems that critic brows should ever lower. In short, the only flint that e'er could fire, the master key to ope his soul inspire, a kindly flame, or mercy spark is higher. Though Daniels is styled, he hath no Daniel's might, but as for me, we're strangers quite. Prudence. Lies, then, the power in strangers to condemn, where justice reigns, to vent malicious phlegm, o'er unoffending heads? For justly's who the mortal blames to private interest true, and Daniels or must steal, or starve, or still his master's dictates faithfully fulfill, nor judge if those commands be good or ill. Then blame him not, who, to gain, pursues with steady step the path his leaders choose. Justice. Enough. Long doomed the drudger of a drudge to live whose meagre profits none begrudge, whose fame none knew, disdained, we pass him by, and yet, although our voice he may defy, like Chiron, when with timorous hand he dared to wield the dart by Hercules prepared. Footnote. When Chiron the centaur attempted to steal the arrows of Hercules for his own use, one of them, which was dipped in the poisonous blood of the Linnæan hydra, fell upon his foot, and gave him a wound which burnt forever with incessant agony. So Daniels, when he strives to hurl the shafts of stolen wit, unknowing where he wafts their force, may find each arrow back return. Footnote. It seems in this allusion that justice, not merely content with judging the literary censures of Isabel, has taken up arms in her personal defense. And deep within his sluggish bosom burn, for thee, uproarious web, heed now thy doom, more sure than if 'twere wove in Clotho's loom. The rabble's king, awhile thou mayest remain. Thine empire owns full many a kingly stain, yet is thy power like that stone-propped bridge stretched by as weak a monarch o'er the sea. One storm swept all away, nor left a ridge to tell its rise and ruin. So with thee. A rule uprise by insolence shall be, thy fate is fixed, begone. Prudence, proceed. In Stone's defence, what hast thou now to plead? Prudence. Prudence, in his defence, great judge, hath naught, nor could my strictest search in him find aught to laud or chide. No passion, feeling, trait illumes his visage with or love or hate. His neutral mien, nor seems or fierce or sad, nor mild nor proud, nor wild nor tame nor glad, nor smile those lips with kind or mirthful glee, nor frown those brows with languor or ennui. Stone he is styled, and stone we find alone, in heart, in head, almost in flesh and bone, a breathing statue, that is swayed by all, that cannot rise, nor therefore can it fall. Justice. 'Tis well. Ambition, what canst thou devise to show where vice or virtue hidden lies? or anything in yon mute piece of mindless flesh. Ambition. My claims I here release, for throned within his breast so equal weighs the scale of good and ill, of blame and praise, that imps and angels rule with equal force, and he to each inclines in their due course. Justice. As little would reproof with such prevail, as could the soft and gently murmuring gale, which comes all balmed from southern skies or bough, or in the oak round with its perfumes blow. Then let him live, a thing condemned, despise, for neither heaven nor earth nor worse devise. Who next? What say ye to yon tailor's toy, who never of himself was known to cloy? Prudence. 'Twere needless more my doctrines to define. His deity is self, her rule is mine. Justice. Ambition, speak. Canst thou his follies hide? Ambition. Behold, great judge, ambition's noblest pride, my worthiest subject, hath he not defied the soaring sonnet maker, strove to climb o'er prostrate heaps of such as dream in rhyme? Hath he not aimed at wit, and oft encumbered his brains with sayings great, bon mots unnumbered, like seaweeds 'neath the mighty waves of ocean, or gentle totterings with the spirit's potion? Bows not his very soul in deep devotion before the shrines of foppery and fame? To literati feast that one gives claim. Footnote. Late feast given by the booksellers, at which Mr. Clark ranked as one of the bright and shining lights. And one in conquest's glory wreathes his name, the first of critics, thus the first of men, ruler of minds, the doomer of the pen, the first of exquisites, the first to woo, and win the fair one's rapturous praises too. Ambition's first, and the worthiest advocate, well may he dare each puny poet's hate, since his the sceptre that decides their fate. Justice. O blinded world, what act hath such achieved to rule your slumbering judgment long deceived? Must every literary dandy's voice condemn or praise as suits his fickle choice? Dare none with truth-lit eyes every work survey, and spurn the picture envy tints portray? Must sense and reason still blindfold endure each simpering, well-dressed quack in literature? Alas, mistaken and perverted throng, who judge with borrowed intellects, how long shall sluggish negligence your senses thrall? In vain truth's frown, in vain is satire's gall. Where wilful blindness reigns supreme, the shafts that even justice in her pity wafts must lose for aye their salutary sting, and languor o'er earth her mantle fling, a nation sleep, and every critic rule the king of literature, though Mammon's tool. The dream is fled, the vain illusion gone, the scourge hath vanished, justice flies her throne. But if her momentary sway hath made one vice the less, more light one error's shade, I mourn not, though my pen hath little loved to censure, I e'en they whose scowls reproved the first light strain my heedless fingers woke, who bade me deem each string in discord spoke, and naught could e'er the muse's curse revoke. But ye, thus far, who've marked my venturous strain, albeit to chide, or bid me ne'er again aspire, lest, broke from reason's guiding chain, the fate that bold Icarus met prove mine. Footnote. Icarus, when confined by Minos in the labyrinth, made his escape by means of wings composed of birds' feathers, and fastened to his shoulders with wax only; but, out of juvenile wantonness, flying higher than necessary, the sun melted the wax, and he fell into the Icarian sea and perished. Ye would I woo, with favour to incline, in gentle courtesy to my parting line; but just emerged from childhood, still a child, in waywardness and passions rude and wild, still basking in that buoyant spring, when, guiled by glossing hope, our thoughts are sun-bright beams, with real or fancied joys the fond heart teems, and life but bliss and earth an Eden seems. No tear to blot our memory's pictured page, no grief save those the smiles of love assuage, no fears that with experience cloud our age, while, yet thus youthful, flowed my spirit forth in numbers which perhaps had little worth. Why need I tell? Footnote. Sir Walter Scott, by frequent and beautiful use, so justly appropriated this little phrase to himself that I cannot forbear placing it in the light of a quotation. How critics strove to dash the goblet from my lips, by thirst made rash, their poisoned arrows plant within my soul, chase the gay visions forth, and veil the goal. These scourgers of the land so oft oppress, that all submit, nor dare demand redress. But I, most heedless of their praise or blame, I who, when soaring, ask a higher fame than they can yield, armed in the well-tried mail of recklessness. When did such armour fail? I give them scorn for scorn. My bark, though borne against the current, bears me heedless on. Theirs be the power, the puny praise, to cheer each fustian bard along his lame career, whose every thought, like Greek Polly's obscure, [Footnote. The writing of Polys, a Grecian poet, were so obscure and unintelligible that his name became proverbial, is of their ignorance the safest lure. Theirs be the pride of Mercius to engage. [Footnote. Mercius was a vain mortal, who challenged Apollo to a trial of skill, but being overcome by him, was slain and converted into the river which bore his name. In contest with Apollos of their age, and bards themselves each dropping leaf berhyme, by turns the critic play, or lyre strings chime, disdain the holy for the godless lore, and laud the page triumphant sin breathes o'er. They move me not, let cringing rhymers cross their venial palms with man's undoing dross. The meed I ask shall merit only claim, or, if too weak my line and worthy blame, be censure my reward and vanish fame. While mid the critic ranks injustice stalks, while ignorance at large as sentinel walks, and bards with naught but gold their verses shield, treads there no champion knight on virtue's field? Must satire's son their scourges tamely yield? Lives there no victor, then, of gnome-like vice? Doth Halleck sleep? Footnote. I must acknowledge in this passage a near approach to plagiarism, although, at the time it was written, certainly in an unconscious one, as I had not perused the original in many years. Byron asks, "Why slumbers Gifford?" and again, "Are there no follies for his pen to purge? Are there no fools whose backs demand the scourge?" Or grows his muse too nice? Halleck, whose pen's fierce potency hath made both power and blazoned wealth to seek the shade. Oh, what were feebler might? The whirlwind's breath, which prostrates but ensures not certain death? Let Halleck wield the plume of satire, then vice shrinks, and folly seeks her native den, and bright-eyed honor smiles on the earth again, and virtue, like the phoenix of the east, springs from the ashes of herself deceased. The seer's dread sway, the sceptred tyrant's reign, the bannered host, when weeps the vanquished plain with bloodied tears, is mighty, but oh far than seer and tyrant, the rage of war, more all-commanding to the minds of men, man's magic sword, or the charmed shield, the pen. The pen! What clime, what nation hath not owned a glorious, fearful majesty enthroned in its despotic rule, before whose might the myriad bow in reverence or affright? My fatherland! When shall its giant fame enroll mid the bright galaxy thy name, mid those of yore, whose genius lighted track, outstripping time, and hurling ruin back, have reared Parnassus on thy boasted height, the trophied monument, the beacon light, which still, even when the tongue that spoke is gone, shall chase oblivion from Apollo's throne? Great England, ocean's sovereign once and pride, whose statesmen peerless, bards immortal died, fair Spain, the noblest mistress of the earth, and France, enough, she gave Napoleon birth, and Rome, the Axian giant fallen low, the first great queen of arts, dominion, woe, of tyrant vice, thus liberty's first foe. The days of glory, the golden age, of these are on the wane, their brightest page turned o'er, and past their high meridian hour. Thy sun, Columbia, with intenser power shall yet irradiate, thy hidden mines pour forth their gems, thy trophies and thy shrines be reared, and bards unborn in embryo bays bloom forth, outrivaling those of olden days. Then shall thy fame defy the spoiler's hand, where genius waves her torch, death's ruthless brand expires, and palsies time, thy fleeting hand. Here let me pause, and here at least control the outpourings of my too exalted soul, to those who love me, and to those I love, who blame my careless pen, or who approve, to those who know me not, or know me well, be it as other, or as Isabel. To friend and foe a courteous farewell. Farewell, ye parting scenes, forgotten long, awake not now, your Lethe's sleep prolong. O memories gone, farewell! What saddening thrill allures the spellbound soul to linger still o'er that grief-breathing word, with hopes yet fears, farewell! Thou art the signal note of tears, the severing shaft that sunders hearts for years, the dirge of youthful love, though love were blest, for absence changes oft, and time's stern test unstrings the soul of man, and breaks that cord which bound him when he spake the parting word. Farewell! The drop bedews the mother's eye, and from the young cheek the tender roses fly, and swells the half-formed tear, which must not flow in manly orbs, that ne'er such moisture know. Farewell! O'er the foaming surge that light bark flies, the seal of love on lips grown pallid dies. Yet they, the parted, left with skies o'ercast, in hope mirage to live on pleasures past, and dream that fond farewell, oh, not the last. They mourn not more, nor do their bosoms swell so sadly as the bards to breathe farewell. In yon gay barge their maiden hearts are borne, but launched on wilder sea, to meet but scorn, or cold indifference, or worse, neglect. The minstrel's soul awaits ambition's wreck, though hope's bright whisperings as the farewell strain is fading, and he breaks the long-loved chain that bound his soul, still paint, with nameless wild, his dearest guardian here, approval's smile. End of second canto. End of Reviewers Reviewed by Cora Mowatt Ritchie, writing as Isabel.